Hey, this hey, this is the Aries forecast for Aries sun, moon, and rising. My name is Amber Calm. I've been an astrologer for about 15 years. And I'm here today to tell you about all of 2025, everything that's going to happen. Obviously, there's a lot to go through, so I'll just kind of jump right into it because it is a really busy year next year. A lot of things are shifting into new signs next year. So, most people around us are going to be going through major shifts and changes also. And you are not going to be so different yourself, Aries. Unfortunately, I know you've just gone through a lot of big shifts and changes already with the North Node going through your sign recently. But let's talk through maybe some of the things that you can expect here in 2025 as well. So we're starting the year off with a Mercury retrograde. So and that's tough for you because that's your ruling planet as an Aries. So we're starting the year off kind of a slow start here, I feel like for Aries. When your ruling planet is retrograde like this, it can feel like you're really low energy and like it's really difficult for you to move forward on certain things that you might be trying to work on. So I think a lot of Aries are probably going to have some sort of major project that they want to get started, that they really have been really trying to push through, even at the end of 2024. But going into, so I think it's already happening to you guys. But coming into 2025, I think unfortunately you're going to still feel a little bit of that. But don't worry because when this does go direct, and in and back into Leo, around April 18th, I would really say like, especially once it gets past the shadow phase, which is the path of which it all went retrograde, that it is now going back over. That's really when you're going to probably start to see actual progress in the way that you want with the projects that you're working on. And that's probably not going to be until about May. So just understand that what you're going through is a part of the process and don't give up on it. That's a really big theme, I think, generally for all of us this year. And this is bleeding over from 2024 as well, from like the summer of 2024 up and through all of most of 2025. This theme around like having a thing that we are really trying to create or do really being tested. And a lot of this actually goes back to the grand conjunction that happened in 2020. And that grand conjunction happened at the very early degrees of Aquarius, which is where Pluto is now. So when we get to Pluto, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But the reason I'm bringing it up now is because this Pluto does oppose this Mercury or Mars retrograde several times because it's a retrograde, right? So it goes back over and opposes it. And then when it retrogrades, it does it again. And when it goes direct, it does it again. And so this is going to create a general sense for everybody of kind of power struggles or feeling like it's really difficult to be heard or achieve what it is that we are trying to achieve generally. But it really speaks to like kind of like a real power dynamic issue going on in the world at large. And now in your personal life, as an Aries, this could have something to do with some of the projects that you're working on, actually, and friends or the network in which you have, your pool of clients, for example. So, like, for example, one way I could see this play out would be um, if you had a business project or plan that you were trying to push forward and launch in the beginning of the year, and even at the very end of last year now. Can you believe it? Um, Causing conflict with others maybe some of the clients that you've had are difficult or are demanding or like pushing boundaries with you. For example, these are just examples, right, of like some ways that this could play out. For some of you guys, this is also maybe some tension around children. The fifth house is also the house of children here. So this could be just a general clash that I see of you kind of standing up for or pushing for a goal that you have and kind of just feeling the resistance, okay, at the beginning of this year. This will get better, especially after May, like I said. So just really try to stick it in, try to stick through it as much as you can. with that. And we're going to come back to that as we come to some of the other transits because they are also definitely relevant to a business or career move here. But I do want to say to close out this Mars retrograde is that most of the Mars retrograde experience is actually going to be in Cancer, which is where it's debilitated. So this is really not a good thing in general. And this is why I say Aries, I think like you are just going to feel kind of scattered and disoriented and like you're having a hard time uh following through with your plans or exacting your plans for whatever reason. Try not to be too hard on yourself about that because this trend is going to make it really tough. So you're working with a handicap here. You know what I mean? So anyway, what Cancer does rule your fourth house as well. So I think a lot of Aries could definitely going to be getting into clashes with family members or having a tension with family members big time here. Um, as well, I do notice that it does square with Chiron as well as it goes through this house. So this is like bringing up some deep childhood wounds for many Aries. Okay. This is a really good energy to kind of recognize what it is that could be holding you back. That is, so subconscious because it's a learned behavior from when you were, you know, before you even had memory, right? The IC point, which often falls into the fourth, but doesn't have to if you use whole sign housing, but does always if you use Placidus. But anyway, um, that point does represent all the things that kind of made you who you are today that you had no say in, right? So before you even had memory, this is where memory is did literally developed. Consciousness is sort of developed here. This is why it's the Cancer house, it's the house of birth, right? Um, so you know what I'm saying? So although we're sort of born in Aries, our physical body is born, our state of consciousness and our memory is born at that IC point, which isn't always in Cancer, but there are themes that are related to all of this. The point of this is, okay, the point that I'm trying to get to for Aries here is that this is a good time to kind of get to the heart of that. Mars can often be associated with like cutting deep into something. This can be like really just scalpels and surgeons and things like that. So to see that here, listen, on the one hand, this can be painful, like it's going to bring up some painful things for you. However, this is a really good opportunity for you to allow that to boil up in you and feel that anger and those feelings and just like cut it out. Like get it truly out of you. Like, suck out the poison, so to speak. And I feel like whatever this is could be related to what is actually energetically holding back maybe a project or a business that you've been trying to launch, or maybe a romance or something regarding children, maybe something to do with, what you are trying to provide for your children or what you want them to be like, or something like that. Maybe that's been held back, or having a child, maybe, right? Like any of these can be examples. Just depends on your personal chart. But at the end of the day, there's something, some family thing, some ancestral drama that is actually bothering you deep down. And I really kind of get like a sense of inner child work here or inner child healing. Okay. Because the fifth house does have a lot to do with our inner child as well. And obviously the fourth has to do with our early childhood experiences. So I see sort of this connection here for you of, yeah, exploring your ancestry and exploring, like, think through what your early life was like and what you think that might have taught you to be like now. Like, is it a situation where you feel like you can't just let loose and have fun? Is it a situation where, you know what I mean? You can think of examples on your journey there, I'm sure. But that's really what I get out of that transit, especially. So we'll come back to Pluto here in a minute, but I want to get through all of the other retrogrades, at least the personal planet retrogrades first. So we do have a Venus retrograde this year also. So we have both Mars and Venus retrograding this year, which are great. But anyway, this Venus retrograde is unusually significant because of the nature of its retrograde and the pattern in which it is starting. Um, Venus creates a star pattern in relation to its retrogrades, and this is the start of the new one. So this one is a significant one. It is going to be felt throughout the year, although the actual retrograde is only taking place between March 1st to April 12th. Now, this starts out in your sign of Aries. And like I said, Aries has its own deal going on as we're about to get into because a lot of is shifting into Aries as well. Um, but then it will retrograde back into Pisces on March 27th. But again, everything that we're going to talk about here are things that you're likely to experience on some level throughout much of the year, although you'll probably experience the thick of it through the first half of the year. So with that said, especially starting, by the way, in like March, maybe even a little before that, I would say probably more like in the middle of February. But anyway, so Venus going through the first house is often a good thing, right? Like when Venus goes through the first house, generally we feel beautiful and like people want us and we do beauty treatments for ourselves or we're really drawn to do that. But with it being retrograde here, I feel like a lot of Aries are actually going to be feeling sort of insecure or feeling like introverted in some way. I feel like a lot of Aries has been more introverted recently than they usually are because of Neptune and Saturn going through their 12th house this last year. So they've been a little bit more in hermit mode than they usually are. Usually Aries is a more extroverted sign generally, right? Um, so you're already coming out of a period in which you sort of have felt more introverted. I do see a lot of opportunity this year for you to be put out there more, which we'll talk about a little bit in the end here more so. But I think as you are, maybe that's where this is coming from. Like as you are starting to really make connections with like powerful friends, or maybe you get a breakthrough of some kind on like social media, or maybe you might connect with some interesting people or get a lot of opportunities to have like a speaking opportunity or something like that. All of these things could be making you kind of insecure actually, and really thinking a lot about how you look and present yourself. So I think a lot of Aries placements, sun, moon, and rising, especially rising, obviously, are going to want to do something different to themselves, beautification wise. I would caution you about that because a Venus retrograde is not generally a good time to do that. So I would say maybe hold off on any like long lasting changes, like any kind of like surgeries or something like that, right? Until Venus is direct and out of shadow, which will probably not be until probably about May. Yeah. That's like you're kind of like just gonna be in like feel like you're kind of in a holding pattern, I think, until like May, it seems like to me. But anyway, that said, this Venus is then gonna retrograde back into your 12th, right? And so I think as it retrogrades back into your 12th house here, you're gonna start wanting to pull back more again. Okay. So you're in this like interesting shift where you kind of want to be alone, but you're gonna get opportunities to not be alone. Um, but you're not necessarily feeling that, I think, here is the feeling that I got looking at this. In some big ways. When Venus is in our 12th house, especially retrograde, it's a time where we really want to be alone or like pull back and be a little bit more introverted. It can be a really great time to meditate or be with yourself or just plan a little like getaway for yourself. This could be a really good time too to like trip or something like that, to be honest, or just go on a trip, like a normal trip out to like a lake cabin or something like that. Like I could see that as well. Venus in the 12th is a really good energy to kind of get away from the rat race and the hubbub and this nice, like, separate little space. Okay. Like a place that truly feels separated though, if that makes sense. That's why I say like a lake house or like a hut in Thailand or something would be obviously like an extreme version of that, but it would definitely apply. Um, I think that that's something that you are going to want to do, honestly, especially here in like the beginning of April. So if you have a chance to plan any kind of like getaway for yourself, plan it for the beginning of April, maybe for your birthday, if you're an Aries sun. I think that would be a really good time, honestly, for you to do that as well. And it can really bring forward a lot of inspiration for you as well, like artistic inspiration. And then when Venus goes direct and back into Aries, right? Then you're gonna be able to utilize that inspiration that you got there at the very beginning of April, right? Um, to make some change to yourself. You might be, like I said, you might be inspired to put yourself out there in some sort of unusual or cool way or some sort of artistic way or something like that. You'll be fine. You'll sort of like reinvent yourself slightly here, I think. Um, and that'll be a really good time for you to do that and really like launch yourself forward. And I do see a lot of you guys starting to get a lot more just opportunities to connect with more people and things like that. Like, I think you've been through a kind of a bit of a time period where you were sort of antisocial there. You were starting to get better there in 2024, I feel like, especially the last half of 2024. Um, but 2025 is going to push that even further, um, as well. So I do also want to mention the Mercury retrogrades. We have three Mercury retrogrades, which we usually have three every year. The Mercury retrogrades are all in your sign in fire signs. So this is your first house, your fifth house, your ninth house. These are all houses that are about um expressing yourself and kind of uh self-actualization, like pushing yourself out into the world, like finding what you really believe in and following your dreams and all of that. This is kind of what all of that is related to. So I think a lot of Aries are going to have some sort of project that they're reviving actually. Um, or at least it would be a good year for you to try that, to do so. Um, there's a lot of energy here for you to kind of dive back into some things that maybe you started in like 2020 even as well. That you feel like kind of fell off or isn't really going the direction that you thought you wanted it to or something like that. This is a really good time for you to kind of dig that back up and reinvent it in some way or kind of try to look at it from a new angle. I see that really working out for a lot of you guys, but it's not just about projects. I also think this is a really good growth year for you in general, having all of those retrogrades through these powerhouse signs like this. A lot of you guys are going to get opportunities to travel here or opportunities to kind of explore what you believe in. Maybe this is a class for some of you, um, or like a trip, like I said, for others. Depends on your kind of personal chart there. But there'll definitely be some interesting opportunities for you to expand your consciousness here. And I think that'll be really exciting for you, actually. And I think that this is something that is going to be really helpful as you go through the Neptune and Saturn entering your sign, because obviously you probably already know by now, you've probably seen already videos about the fact that they are both going to be entering your sign here in March and then in May. Now, what's interesting about this is they're sort of dancing around each other, and they sort of like they were in 2024 there in Pisces, because so Neptune will enter Aries, your sign, on March 30th, but then Saturn will also enter Aries on May 24th, and they will meet up in the sky in what's called a conjunction on June 15th. But then they'll both retrograde out of this sign in July. And then Saturn will leave in September, Neptune in November, and they won't meet up again until 2026. So they're kind of dancing around, is what I'm saying. Um, so you've already been experiencing Neptune and Saturn through your 12th house. Now, when Neptune and Saturn are together like this, they are an interesting pair because Neptune wants to dissolve things and Saturn wants to maintain them. So there's sort of like a battle of wills going on with these two. And so for a lot of people, this is really presenting itself like, could I make my dreams a reality? And how would I go about doing so? There is a real possibility with this energy to bring our dreams into reality, honestly, but only if we can somehow marry these two very seemingly opposite vibes, right? Meaning we have to be able to exist in the sort of subconscious dream world that is Neptune, while also being practical and taking actual serious action, like with Saturn. And these two, it can be very difficult, obviously, to do that, right? Now you've already experienced this going on in your 12th house, throughout 2024. So for a lot of Aries placements, as I said, or I think I said in the beginning of the video as well, have been already feeling kind of introverted. Maybe you've had really um it's like you want to get time alone, but it's either hard for you to get that time alone, or you feel like when you do get that time alone, it's actually just lonely and not really what you're looking for, or something like that. There's like a weird sense of longing for something, but not really knowing where what that is or where to place that. For many of you, this has to do with experiences that were either from a past life or from the womb, actually, because the 12th house can represent your experiences in the womb. So, like I said earlier, with that Mars going through your fourth, seriously, the beginning of the year is a really sick time for you to try to overcome any like very subconscious things that you don't really remember. So maybe consider getting like a past life regression, or some type of reading, or maybe go into deep meditation, or maybe go to therapy or something like that. Because it could be a good way for you to release this fully forever and be free. Which of course we all want for you. But what I'm getting at here is saying that these two are going to start to shift now, though, into your first house. Now, these two coming into your first house is going to be a very different vibe, because this is part of where I'm getting the interpretation that you're going to be more hard on yourself. Okay. Because when Saturn goes through the first house, we start to be more insecure about ourselves and say like, oh, I need to like work out more, or I need to better this or that about myself, or like we can just start to like think badly about ourselves. Now in your case, Aries, I think a lot of this is actually coming from a place of like people having rumors about you, or um like you're putting yourself out there and you are getting some sort of attention, but maybe some of it's negative. Like maybe some of it is like more criticism or something. Um, Maybe that's part of all of this. But regardless, I would definitely say that you do seem to be here more hard on yourself in general. So I just want you to be really aware of that, because some of that might be a little unwarranted. So ask yourself if you would think the same of another person, like outside of yourself. Like if you had a friend that was going through that, would you be like, you idiot, I can't believe we messed this up. You know what I mean? Like try to think about it maybe from that direction as well. Um, but it's just generally a time frame in which I think you're going to be pushed more kind of into the world, or like have some of you will have more to do, most likely, honestly, with this. I think with Neptune also entering this house, though, it's like you are unsure about who you are somewhat. Um, it does kind of feel like you're sort of reinventing yourself in a way here. Maybe you're thinking about who am I really, or how do I label myself? How do I present myself to others? Like I bet some of you will even be changing maybe your name this year, or like maybe through marriage or something, or maybe some of you will just do some really different makeover of some kind or something. You get what I mean? These are just examples, obviously, as well. Now, Saturn here does rule your 10th house. So for some of you, this could be starting to feel a little dissatisfied with your career, or wanting to have like a career change of some kind. I do feel pretty strongly like a lot of you guys are going to be getting some tough rumors, or have people say some things about you, though. I think I've said that, but I definitely see that as well. So I also wanted to make sure that I talked about Jupiter, because Jupiter is also switching signs. We got a lot to get through, so I'm going to keep rolling. But obviously, if you get a personal reading, we can get a little bit more in depth on how this will all play out in your personal chart. So let me know if you want that. So Jupiter starts out the year in Gemini, which it was in 2024 also. So for the first half of the year up until June, it's in Gemini, but from June onwards, it will be in Cancer, which will be a welcome reprieve when this retrograde Mars gets out of there and Jupiter enters it. That's for sure. And for you, it being in the third house is, like I said earlier, going to give you a lot of opportunities, maybe to speak at some sort of event, or this could be a really good time for you to network as well. Okay, so up until June, very good time for you to like network, try to meet people, try to market yourself on social media, things like that. I think a lot of you people, a lot of you guys are gonna, and that's where your head is gonna be at. So that kind of also explains why you're like, oh, maybe I should change how I look or something like that. You know what I mean? I can see why that might come up that way. But I do see a lot of opportunities for also for like short trips. Like a lot of you guys are gonna probably go on a short trip of some kind during this time. Um, some of you guys may also go back to some studies or kind of brush up on something that you've studied in the past um, as well here. I'm just thinking through some of the other aspects going on here. It is aspecting Pluto at the very beginning of the year too. So I think that a lot of you could be making some really powerful friends this year. Um, so really put yourself out there in that way. Like be willing to join clubs or um speaking events, even online. I mean, some of these houses are related to the internet. So even online groups apply here, okay? Just be active in front of people. As much as you don't really want to be. Like I see this about you, like you kind of seem like you don't really want to do it and that like there's a part of you that doesn't want to do it. Um explore your childhood as to why, like we said earlier, okay? Dig deep and heal that inner child. Why does that inner child not want to do this? Right? But there are definitely opportunities for you to connect with people that could become really great benefactors for you. Um, as well. Um, Now, once it moves into the fourth for the last half of the year, for a lot of you guys, this will be a big improvement to your home life. Okay. So I do feel like you're frustrated with your home life kind of in the beginning part of the year. Honestly, you guys could be just really in the beginning part of the year, maybe you're really busy at home or you're just running around or you're wanting to do a bunch of cleaning or maybe you're having some kind of conflict with a family member. Um, you just seem generally sort of frustrated with your home life until about April. Um, but with Jupiter entering here in June onwards, this will improve your home dramatically. So maybe some of you guys move, or some of you guys might be. I can see another example. Maybe some of you guys are renovating your house or something for the beginning part of the year. Um, and that's why you hate it. And then the last half of the year you get to enjoy these renovations, right? That's another example. But there's something that goes on where it's just like you're really like active and frustrated with your home situation and then like but it improves a lot by the end of the year. So just know that whatever it is that you're doing is going to be worth it in the end, okay? Jupiter going through the fourth house often indicates a major upgrade when it comes to your living situation, whatever that means for you. Maybe that just means you get rid of a toxic person out of your household or something, right? For some of you, that might be the case. But in general, what we're looking at here is an opportunity to upgrade your living situation. So, kind of what I said earlier is just not to be too repetitive here, but just remember that for that first part of the year, it is a really good time for you to really like just dig out all the crap to set up like good foundations that is like poison free for when this Jupiter comes into this house and you can kind of like, build your new home on holy ground, so to speak. I see that being something that could work for you. I also can see this being a bit of a clash for you when it comes to work and home life, okay? As well, just because that Jupiter and Saturn are going to be squaring throughout the first part of 2025 as well, up until I think actually probably about three-quarters of it. And it did also at the end of 2024, so we already kind of have some vibe of what that's like. Jupiter squaring Saturn is sort of challenging your dreams, okay? Asking what if you're doing the things that need to be done, kind of giving it a reality check, okay? Um, and so for a lot of you guys, that Saturn is squaring it, and Saturn rules your 10th. So I think for a lot of you guys, there are going to be kind of conflicts between managing your general home life as well as your career life. Like I see these two kind of clashing, or being in tension with one another as well here through the year. Um, I also definitely want to get to Uranus. This is going to end up being such a long video. Um, because there's so much going on. I can't help but not talk about it. So Uranus is also going to be shifting signs. Um, Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018. and is going to also be in Taurus for most of 2025. However, it is briefly going to visit Gemini between, um, I want to say July to November. I'm just double checking. Yeah, July to November. And this will give us a taste of what it will be like when it enters Gemini for good for about 7 years, starting in 2026. So we're going to get a taste of what that transit is going to be like. Uranus is a pretty slow moving planet, and he takes about 7 years to go through a sign. So, with him going through Taurus, that's your second house. So your money situation has probably been whack. With Uranus going through your second house, it can be really hard to get stability when you have Uranus going through the second house. So a lot of you guys have probably been maybe giving away a lot of stuff or finding that stuff is just kind of like filtering out of your life very quickly, because the second house is the house of money, but it's also stuff like the things you have and your assets and things like that. And so a lot of you guys have probably felt like you've just been losing a lot of stuff since 2018. This is going to start to get better, especially starting there in July. Okay. And in 2026 onwards, it'll get better. And that sense of shifting and instability will shift to a different area of your life. That's really what Uranus does, is he just brings this like really uh, unpredictable, rebellious nature. And he isn't inherently good or bad. So he can bring good and bad. So for a lot of you guys, maybe your financial situation has just changed a lot since 2018. Maybe some of you guys have started businesses or gone self-employed. Maybe some of you guys have just shifted careers or how you make money in some way. Um, it could be a variety of things. Obviously, Uranus through the second can really favor people that work online or remotely. It can favor people who are in astrology, like me. It could favor people that are in holistic healing or scientific fields, or even just people that work weird hours. At the end of the day, Uranus is just the weird, okay? He's the only planet lying on his side for a reason. Like he's just kind of like the unexpected, the curveball. He's the wild card. And so a lot of you guys have been going through all of that already. But like I said, this is going to start to dissipate. And starting in July, you're going to get a taste of what this full transit's going to be like. Uranus through the third house is going to be wild for you. Okay. It's going to bring a lot of unexpected trips, unexpected conversations with people. A lot of you guys could have like a sudden breakthrough online or something like that. This is why I say a lot of Aries, you guys should really be trying to put yourself out there a lot, like maybe on videos or social media or just promoting yourself in your locally or whatever it is that applies here. Maybe applying for new jobs if you're in more like traditional work, any of that kind of stuff. Um, because I do see really good opportunities for that, especially when Uranus first enters here in Gemini, because it'll aspect Pluto when it does, and that's around July. But then it'll go back and re-enter it there in 2026. So for a lot of you guys, this actually might take off more in 2026 than in 2025. Is going to depend on your personal placements here. But either way, you are definitely starting a long cycle here in which you are going to start getting a lot of, like I said earlier, speaking opportunities, or like maybe some of you guys will be on podcasts or something like that. Um, or to get picked up by some celebrity or something like that. Like honestly, all of those things are possible with these transits. So keep an open mind and leave your opportunities open. Don't let your sense of, am I good enough? Do I need to make these changes to how I look first before I do all this? No, you don't. You look good now, honey. Like the way you look right now is just fine. It is your time to do this now. So definitely go for it. Pluto going through the 11th house is significant because it is the start of a long transit. Pluto is going to take about 17 years to go through Aquarius here. But it's significant now because it is just starting this transit, and it's also triggering the point that started the grand conjunction here in 2020. So the grand conjunction is when Jupiter and Saturn meet up in the sky, which they do every 20 years. But this last one there in 2020 was significant because it switches elements every 200 years. And that is when it just switched elements to air elements. And so this is starting a really long cycle generally. But over the next 20 years, you are going to be unfolding some massive purpose in regards to the 11th house. So for a lot of you guys, you are aligning more with your kind of soul family, or finding your audience, finding people who like what you do or appreciate what you do or want to be involved. A lot of you guys are getting good networking opportunities or meeting benefactors or mentors or people that can help elevate you. This is a really awesome place to have it because the 11th house is the house of our hopes and dreams, like our ultimate dreams. It's like card vibes. So you have a real opportunity, Aries, to uh really get serious progress on manifesting your dreams this year. So don't be afraid to dream. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Um, and see who you align with best. I will say that when Pluto goes through Aquarius, the one thing about that is that uh, it is probably going to shift your friend network a lot. So a lot of you guys are going to be losing friends and then gaining a friend suddenly and then suddenly losing that friend again, and so on and so forth. You also might be getting some really intense friendships into your life, like people who are in sort of a power dynamic, power play struggle with you as well. So while I do see some of you guys really connecting with some powerful figures who are supportive of you, you should also be aware that some of the people that you come across in your networks are not going to be supportive of you. And I think that's where part of your sense of insecurity is going to come from, where it's going to come from somewhat, because I do think that some people are going to kind of evil eye you a little bit, or maybe say some rumor about you, or just generally try to like knock your confidence, because you are coming across really interesting and powerful this year, and controversial a little bit as well. So just be aware of all of those things and make sure that you do set aside time to clean that energy off of yourself. You know what I mean? That you get space to release that, because, well, the last thing I did want to talk about is that we do have a nodal shift as well. On North Node is going to be moving into Pisces on January 29th, and it's going to be there all year. So Pisces is your 12th house. And so we have your 12th house pretty well highlighted this year also. And that's why I say it's interesting that you're getting all of these opportunities to go out and do things, because I think a big part of you is not really going to want to do that, actually. I think there's a big part of you that's going to want some space and time alone. And I think that a lot of you guys will get that. For some of you guys, that'll be a good thing where you get space to um, become inspired and connect with, the divine and your true voice. But for others of you, this is going to feel more lonely in a sense. Okay. It's going to kind of depend on your personal chart. I think for a lot of you guys, it is going to feel, it's like you feel alone in a crowded room. Like that's the feeling that I get about it. There's a lot of people around you that are interested in you, but it feels like you just kind of want to get away from it. Like it's almost like too much. I hope that makes sense. Um, but North Node in the 12th house is going to ask you to make sure that you do take those sabbaticals, take those times and spaces away to clear your energy, because I think a big part of why you feel this way is because you're not wrong. There are going to be a lot of people that are kind of evil eyeing you or kind of sending you negative vibes. So I think making sure that you do get space to release that is important here. Anyways, that's my take on your 2025 Aries. I think it's going to be overall a really good year for you, honestly. But of course, you can always message me if you want a personal rating. That'll be the best way to know what will really happen. And of course, we also have classes going on and other materials that you can get on the website. Go check it out, calmspirit.com. And thank you so much for watching this video. Definitely like, subscribe. I will try to put out more videos for you guys as soon as I can. Good luck.